Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. Welcome to another episode. In episode 249, I visit with a special guest from Locked On Lions podcast, Matt Dery. We talk about aspects of the Lions' 2025 season. I'll get some of his insights on the club in comparison to what he's seen in the past with the franchise and what he thinks the future just might hold. We'll do that, plus reflect on some comments made by Brad Holmes at his press conference. That and more. Now, as we get started, I want to remind you that this episode is brought to you by our friends at Roaster Jack Coffee Company. They've been doing this for a quarter of a century, folks. Have you given them a try yet? Go to roasterjack.com, use the code LIONS. It'll get you 20% off your next order. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
This is James Williams, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is a special guest from Locked On Lions. That is Matt Dery, a fellow Syracuse University graduate at that. Matt, thank you for taking time to talk Detroit Lions football with me today.
Anytime, Matt. Good to see you.
All right. Many people know you from your Locked On Lions podcast. Not everybody knows exactly where they can find your stuff. You've been doing this since 2016. So just in case they can't, where's the best place to find you and get a daily dose of the Detroit Lions?
Yeah, like you said, Matt, we've been doing the show since 2016, Monday through Friday. And then during the season, I usually do a post-game show on Sundays. It's kind of wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify. We have our YouTube page where we have over 17,000 followers, which is great. You even can go to lockedonlions.com and it kind of will take you wherever you listen to your podcast, man. But it's been a lot of fun. And so it's a weird season, to say the least.
That it is. I mean, 2025 did not go the way most Lions fans were expecting it to go. So let's start there. Preseason record prediction. Is that something you do? And if so, did you have a number in mind? What were your thoughts going in?
That's a good question. Gosh, I got to go back and remember. I think I said 10 or 11 wins.
Okay.
That's right. I knew it would be less than 15. And I knew with the schedule and how brutal that it was, that this was going to be a tough road. I did not anticipate just the underachieving, the getting beat up at the line of scrimmage, both offensively and defensively, offensive line, defensive line. And it was surprising, to say the least. Now, again, because the division was improved, because the Bears got, some lucky bounces and had a good year. And certainly Green Bay is an excellent team. And there's just something, Matt, wasn't clicking this year. And, we both were talking off air about watching Brad Holmes today. There were some things that I still think Brad has to answer about why things didn't go their way this year, but they just didn't. But I didn't expect 9-8. And I think they'll be better next year for it.
All right. Well, is there anything I guess there's probably a few things, but in your eyes, what went wrong? Why didn't they get to double-digit wins? Because like you, I didn't expect 15 wins. I was thinking 11 or 12 wins, and that didn't happen. And so in your eyes, what were the main factors?
Well, first and foremost, the loss of Frank Ragnow. And, we kind of didn't touch on it enough. I think that's me and everybody. Yes, Ben Johnson's gone. Yes, Aaron Glenn's gone. What are they going to do? It's similar to Philly a few years ago when they lost both coordinators and how they were going to handle that. But the bottom line is Frank Ragnow, it turned out, was the most valuable player on that team for the 3 years that they had success when they won 9, 12, and 15. He was just that good. And I know there were games he was out and they missed him due to injury, but just his loss, that presence, I just don't think that offense was the same. Now, again, the offense still was top 3 in the league in scoring and everything else. I think the defensive line was a disappointment too. You talk about the loss of Ragnow. I'd also throw the interior of that defensive line. You're paying Aleem McNeil over $20 million a year. You paid DJ Reader $13.5. You drafted a first-round pick, and I get it, he was 27th, but still Tyleik Williams. And they just didn't perform. And to not be able to stop the run, and I know Brad touched on it a little bit today that he thought that was uncharacteristic, but if you can't run the ball and you're getting stuffed at the line of scrimmage on offense and then defensively, you're just getting chunked and you're getting beat up front. I don't care if Brian Branch and Kirby were out and everything else. It's going to be tough to win games, especially with that schedule. And now you look up next year and you see a fourth place schedule and you get to play Miami and who knows where they're going, and Tennessee and the Giants and stuff like that. You may get a little bit of a break, but they've got to fix, I think, what they were doing so well for 3 years. They didn't do so well this year, and that's fix the problems up front, both the offensive and defensive lines.
All right, now I covered the team under Matt Millen. That was a long time ago, but things just could never come together under that group. You've covered them for quite some time, including under Matt Patricia and others. Is there something about this leadership that gives you confidence over the other ones that they're going to be able to get pieces of this puzzle back together for next season?
Matt, you just compared him to Matt Millen, dude. Come
I
on,
did not
now.
compare him to. I looked at the arc of the Lions' history.
Yes. Oh, I'm just messing with you. I mean, I go back to 96 when I was working at WDFN, and, I quickly working at post-game shows with Art Regner. I learned so much about Lions history from Arthur, because he was just unreal in ripping the team, but also knowing the history and how they just have never gotten it done. So I have to give Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell the benefit of the doubt for winning playoff games, multiple playoff games, and putting this team in a position where it was just a couple of years ago, they were 30 minutes from a Super Bowl. You have to take that into consideration. This team had 5 Pro Bowlers this year. Now, it doesn't excuse the results, the 8 losses, playing a meaningless game in week 17, but there's talent here, and it's young. It's not like the Commanders from 2 years ago, where all their talent was, outside of Jaden Daniels, old and toward the finish line here. I still like Gibbs and Hutchinson and Penei Sewell, and Jack Campbell's really good. They got some nice young pieces that are a good core. So I look at that. I see that it was homegrown and drafted, and that gives me hope for the future. But they've got some work to do to kind of fix what happened this year. They got to get an offensive coordinator in here, and they've got to make some changes defensively.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit on a couple things, right? The fact that you looked at that offensive line, you've talked about that, and the defensive line. But some things that have happened that give you hope. You said there's a lot of young core players, but is there anything you saw on the field or anything that took place this year that does add to that hope for the future? Because like you, I see a lot of great pieces, and I still see a lot of potential for this team.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree with you. Jack Campbell, to me, first and foremost, gives me a lot of hope, because he's in the middle of that defense. And boy, did he take a giant leap this year. So much so, again, that he was voted a Pro Bowl starter. He is one of the best linebackers in the game. And you didn't hear that at this time last year. Yeah, you knew that he was going to be good, and he was drafted in the first round for a reason. But, man, he took a giant leap forward. So that gives me some hope. I think Aiden Hutchinson is healthy again, which is a big, big factor. You've got to have somebody coming off the edge that teams are game planning for and that they're afraid of going after the quarterback. So I think those are two things that give me hope. I know we didn't play a ton, and I know that there's fans that are upset that they drafted, or they use so much draft capital to trade and get him. But I think Isaac TeSlaa coming on with JMO and St. Brown is exciting for the future. They got to get Sam Laporta healthy. The tight end room without Laporta and Brock Wright was a dumpster fire. But I'm hopeful. Ratledge had a decent rookie year. So again, the young pieces give me hope, and the schedule next year gives me hope, because again, this year's schedule was murder, and we knew that we're going to go from 15 down. We didn't think it would be a 6-game difference. And I think too, just listening to Dan and Brad these last couple of days, they've been humbled. This is not I don't say they were cocky, but I thought they were very confident, and at times a little bit, their heads were big. Maybe not as much Dan as Brad, but I think now they've been humbled a little bit, and now it's time to get back to work and really focus again.
All right. Well, I want to apologize in advance for asking this next question, because I almost feel like it's wrong to even ask, but I need to get your opinion, because there are so many social media thoughts on Jared Goff. Okay.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Some people think the Lions need something different. We know that's not going to happen. Dan's already come out full support of Goff. And I, for the record, if you've ever listened to my show, know huge supporter of Jared Goff, especially you look at his numbers, what he did this year, considering the offensive line and all that. But what are your thoughts? And why do you think there might be, such a love-hate feel for so many people with Jared Goff, if that's accurate.
No, I do know that the Not the Same Old Lions podcast is a big golf love fest. But with that being said, no, I just think because he can't move very well and runs into some sacks, and when he has bad games, they're bad. All right. I think that fans, look, we're spoiled here. And you watched how they lost at the end of last year, and you saw what Jaden Daniels did. And you just go, man, if we had a guy like that who's a, double, triple threat when it comes to moving outside the pocket, running, that's exciting. It is. But I watched Jared Goff this year and I watched Lamar Jackson this year. Who had a better year? Who would you have rather had in that final game this year, or Lamar had a bad year? Now it wasn't his fault they lost to the Steelers. The kid missed a field goal, but I do like Jared Goff. I'm with you. The question has to be now, is he good enough, and is he the guy to lead them to where they want to go, which is a Super Bowl? And that still remains to be seen. He's been there with the Rams, and they were 30 minutes away a couple of years ago. But I think when he had good games this year, he had time to throw. Everything around him almost has to be perfect with the run game, the offensive line, and the weapons for him to really succeed. But that's okay. It was the same that way for quarterbacks when I grew up. I grew up in Cleveland. I watched Bernie Kosar. He could not move from the get-go. They used to say that Bernie looked like a giraffe on stilts. That was kind of the knock on him. But he had a really good offensive line. He had Mack and Biner. He had Webster Slaughter and Reggie Langhorne. He had Ozzie Newsome. So it worked. But I think now with, like you said, Matt, you bring up a great point. Social media, how easy it is to just rip on everybody. We're in this society right now that is so negative and so attacky. And that's not just in sports, that's everywhere, that it's easy to just pile on people. But be careful what you wish for. Remember the fans that were clamoring for Hendon Hooker, right, Matt? And he's not even he's on a practice squad somewhere. I mean, come on now. Let's be realistic here.
Yeah, I think the great perspective I like to have is Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff are the two best quarterbacks the Lions have had in the last 50 years. And as Brad Holmes had said, it's a lot easier to get worse than get better at that position when you're right there. But let's stay with the offense. We talked about this. Offense coordinator John Morton is out. They did not waste time. They said they came to a decision about it and said, let's move on and look at the other candidates that are out there. So couple questions for you. What do you think the Lions should be looking for in an offensive coordinator?
Well, creativity, aggressive play calling, fitting with Dan Campbell is huge. Look, here's the thing. You interview all these guys. Let's say we know the two so far, David Blau and Mike McDaniel. I'm assuming they're going to interview Todd Monken. I'm assuming they're going to interview Davis Webb. I'm assuming they're going to interview Mike Kafka, Brian Daboll, whoever is interested. I think they should interview everybody. Let's really run the table here and see who's out there and talk to all of them. I think anytime the Lions over the last couple of years have had to replace assistants on their staff, they've gone with the buddy system, and they've gone with people that have known, maybe they had a Dan Campbell tie in New Orleans or a Sean Payton tie, or, John Morton was a guy that they knew from before. I want them to talk to everybody and see if the fit is there. You're also, let's say you talk to Daboll and Brian's like, look, if I take this job, I want to know that my head coach has my back and is not going to get an itchy trigger finger to call plays, because that's what happened this year. And that's not a knock on Campbell. He did the right thing. This isn't working. I'm taking it over. But whoever you talk to is going to have to mesh and mold with a head coach that over twice in 5 years has taken over play calling. McDaniel's interesting to me. I like it. Don't love it. I said it on my show on Thursday that when they came to town this year for those joint practices before the exhibition game, the Dolphins were a joke. They were a mess. I got more texts from people like, it's like the Lions are playing a JV team out here. They're not organized. McDaniel's walking around with his, weird little pants on that show the ankles and all that. And it's like, now everybody's like, yeah, McDaniel, you were the ones ripping on him months ago. So I do think you got to talk to him. The name that I think is interesting is Mike Kafka, because I think he's a really good offensive mind. He was thrown to the Wolves this year as the interim head coach for the Giants. His game plan at Ford Field with Jameis Winston and that band of renown Wandale Robinson, they lit the Lions up. I loved the razzle dazzle. I loved the throwback pass, double reverse throwback pass to Jameis that day.
Yeah.
He emptied the bag that day. And I wonder if Kafka was thinking to himself, maybe I audition a little bit for this Lions offensive coordinator job because it's probably going to open. He's an intriguing name for me.
That was an incredible offensive performance by the Giants that game. I remember
A bad
that well.
offense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's talk about play calling in a minute. Offensive coordinator or Dan? What do you like? Do you like Dan calling the play still next year? Or is it, hey, you have the offensive coordinator do it that way, the coach can, spend less time on the one thing and more time on everything?
I didn't have an issue with Campbell calling the plays. There were mistakes made. My biggest issue was, you're right, it took away from him being the CEO out there. Their timeout usage was abysmal at times. Their clock management at end of halves was not the best. And I get it too that Dan, for the first 4 years, had the same guy kind of up in the booth, helping him with some of that, and didn't have that this year. I get all that. But I think whoever they bring in as OC, I think should be calling the plays and allowing Campbell to go back to kind of running the game and making sure that all the the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed.
All right. Well, this team's going to look a lot different next year than it did from 2023 to 2024, right? There's going to be a number of guys that are free agents that won't be coming back. But out of these pending free agents, is there a guy or two who jump out at you that you're like hoping the Lions will bring this guy or two back?
Retaining wise, yeah, it's a good question. Matt, I think that, gosh, it's crazy to say this because he didn't make that big of an impact until the end of the year, but a guy like Avonte Maddox has to be brought back because you've got to have a veteran safety that knows the system, because you just don't know about Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch's health, especially Joseph. And Brad Holmes didn't really shine much light on his future today. But I think Maddox has to be a must. I mean, look, I know Al-Qadim Muhammad is 31, and I know that he's going to want a big payday. He's never had one. But he had 11 sacks this year. I would hope they would bring him back. As far as other guys, I mean, I'm an Amik Robertson fan. I know PFF doesn't love him and grades him poorly, but I think that would be a guy I would want to bring back. But I'm assuming his agent is looking for a big payday, multiple year deal, and an opportunity to start. I mean, if the Lions go base 4-3 and it's Terry on one side and DJ Reed on the other, that leaves Amik Robertson not on the field. So I would assume he'd likely be gone. So those, I think Anzalone's gone. If I had to guess, geez, on some of the other guys, I mean, Marcus Davenport, I wouldn't think would be brought back. I think the fans will revolt if they see another 1-year deal for him. DJ Reader, I think, is gone.
Yeah.
There's, like you said, I think the Lions re-upped. I mean, Onwuzurike, why bring him back? I think there's a lot of guys that were brought back on 1-year deals and they kept the band back together. And I think some fresh faces would not be a bad thing. I'll tell you this: Roy Lopez should be brought back. I thought I thought he was underrated on that D line this year.
Yeah, the Lions did a great job of bringing some depth pieces in on that defensive side of the ball, and it would be nice to see some of those guys come back. We both heard Brad Holmes talk today, and I think one of the more interesting and straightforward questions brought up to him was something we've kind of heard people speculating about for a week or so, which is David Montgomery and what his future looks like in Detroit. Brad Holmes said that's something they have to discuss. He didn't shoot it down. He said they have to discuss it. You look at how much money he's getting paid and how much they're using him. Do you have an opinion on whether they should bring him back or not?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'll give you this. I think the Lions should bring David Montgomery back because he makes them a better team. I don't think he's coming back. That did not sound like a general manager going, "Oh yeah, we love him. He's not going anywhere. He's under contract." Remember, David Montgomery's under contract. This is not a free agent.
Exactly.
This is a guy that got extended. He's on the team. And when he was asked that by Rachel Hotmeyer today, he was pretty transparent. I think he was ready for the presser to be over. It was about 40 minutes in, but he was like, "Yeah, we'll see." I mean, we got to make sure that we utilize. My guess is, based upon Brad talking about utilizing him and getting the most out of him, my guess is that Montgomery in his exit interview said, "Look, I didn't sign here to stand on the sideline. Not that he's ripping Jahmyr Gibbs or saying he doesn't like it here. I think Montgomery's happy playing here. But if they can't find a way to get him more involved, they'll probably trade him. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I like
Did you
you.
get the same sense?
I did. It was so. I have a very strong opinion that they should bring him back because they are a
Yeah,
much better team with him.
I agree.
And that said, the way Brad responded to that, that was very wide open, which means if it's that wide open, anything is possible.
Yeah.
But I do think they should run it back at least one more year, though, because the what it gives them on the team.
I'll say this too. If there's, let's say that's once we get into the trading season here, I got one team I know will call Brad Holmes for David Montgomery, and that's the Jets.
Yeah,
Aaron Glenn would want him on the team. Aaron Glenn would tell him, and I know they've got Bryce Hall and others, but I think Aaron Glenn would say, "Oh my God, I need a veteran leader, somebody that carries the pile in the run game." The Jets would, I bet Aaron Glenn and the GM's name escapes me, the young dude, they would call Brad Holmes in a second about, hey, want to make a move here.
yeah. Well, hopefully that conversation never takes place, but we know there's going to be a lot of discussions this offseason about a number of players. Matt, you followed this team for a long time. Do you have a favorite memory from over the years of just following the team or whatnot?
That's a great question. I will give you one bad and one good. Positive side, I remember being in the stadium, I believe it was 97 for the Barry Sanders record
Oh,
against the Jets at the Silverdome. I had for years when I was covering the team for WDFN, I had an unbelievable seat in that press box because it was so low and it was an older press box and an older stadium. But I just always had this little corner area I sat. And just to be in that stadium when for Barry's, going over 2,000 yards and all that, the place was electric. I know that was the same game that Reggie Brown got hurt and it kind of
oh yeah.
put a damper on the day. But man, that I've never been in a louder stadium. I was in the Cleveland Stadium in '86 when they scored to go up on Denver in the AFC Championship game, and the place was actually shaking. That was loud. But this being inside with a dome was just incredible. That's a memory I'll never forget. And also, you go back to the Bobby Ross days and being in Philly. I can't remember the exact year, but it was the year of the Bobby Ross, I don't coach that stuff rant when he went ballistic. When the Lions lost in Philly, they committed a bunch of penalties. They'd gotten a Mark Spindler blocked field goal, but they just were so sloppy that day, and it was a really bad season. Jason Hanson missed like a 57-yarder, left it short at Veterans Stadium, and we went in afterwards to get Bobby and the players and stood there with my microphone. I just remember him spitting just all over the
Oh,
microphone just because he was so mad and the saliva built up in his mouth. And I don't coach that stuff. And you guys are hammering my tail. And he just went nuts. And I'm standing there going, oh my God, I hope my tape recorder's working here because this is gold. And it was. We played that over and over again. And it was kind of the end of the Ross era. But I'll never forget being there. And I remember Jason missed that field goal. We went out onto the field when they allowed reporters out on the field to grab some players as they walked off. And I remember just dodging batteries that are being thrown from the stands from those
oh,
Philly fans, and they're heckling the hell out of Jason. And it's like, Sport, we got into the tunnel, and he's like, I missed a 57-yarder in cold weather and into the wind. What? They're throwing stuff at me? It's not my fault. It wasn't. But I just never forgot that day in Philadelphia many years ago.
wow. Yeah, those are a couple really incredible memories. You brought the Silverdome, so I got to tell you, my first Detroit Lions game was Monday night against the Raiders, Barry Sanders, Bo Jackson. And
Yes.
that
Yes.
was pretty incredible. And our seats were the top row of the Silverdome, and that held like 80,000 people. So that
Oh, it
place
was
was
amazing.
mammoth.
It was. It was a lot of fun covering those games back in the day, and there were some obvious, great moments, and you kind of miss it because it was such a big place. And I think Ford Field was built very well, and I like that it's a little bit smaller and cozier and more condensed. But man, the Silverdome definitely rocked. That's for sure.
Matt, is there anything I haven't asked you that you'd like to share, whether it's about the upcoming season or the work you do?
No, man, you hit on everything. I hope fans have some. I know they're angry. I get it, and you see it on social media, and so do I. And I understand the frustration, but I really truly believe This is not some rebuild that Brad Holmes said that today. They've made mistakes. Brad Holmes made mistakes. Dan Campbell did not do a good job this year. The staff, everybody failed. This was a complete organizational failure. Yet, Matt, I mean, 9-8. Imagine back in the day when we pandered for 9 wins and 4 straight winning seasons. And this is still, the fans are great, and they're unbelievably hungry for a winner. They deserve a winner. I think the organization, I hope, will drop some ticket prices. I hope it's not as expensive to get into that place next year. But I just hope fans can get ready for hopefully a good off season, and for them to get back to their winning ways and get back into the playoffs. I truly believe it'll happen. But we got to see where this goes, the OC hire, everything else, any other moves that they make. But yeah, doing the show every day. I love interacting with everybody. I appreciate you having me on and you reaching out. Anytime you need me, I'm here.
All right, Matt, thanks again so much for taking the time to talk Detroit Lions football with me. Enjoy the offseason.
You too, Matt. Thank you so much.
Again, want to thank Matt Derry from Locked On Lions podcast for joining the show today. You can catch his work anywhere you can stream a podcast. Also, a thank you to our friends at Roaster Jack Coffee Company, roasted incredible beans since '99. If you visit roasterjack.com, you use the code LIONS, it'll get you 20% off your next order. Thank you for tuning in, folks. Please tell your friends and family about the show. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram. You can find our show streaming on any major platform. The video version is on YouTube as well. We'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, reviews. For more content and episodes, visit notthesameoldlions.com. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.